All right, we know that Mike Trout can hit, and we know that Shohei Ohtani can hit, and even Rendon when he's healthy. But how clutch these Angels hitters? On today's show, we're going to give you the numbers. We're going to share with you how important it is to get runners on in front of Trout, Ohtani, and Rendon so that they can knock them in and we can get a win, Johnny. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for being like our friend Anthony and making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Every show is free and available on all platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Thank you for being here with us for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John. Johnny, can I just say one thing? Today,
yes,
December 15th, is my son's birthday.
That's right.
17 years old, my buddy. So happy birthday to my son. And we're going to do a episode of Locked On Angels for your birthday.
Man, I was 17 when he was born. Now I feel very old.
yeah, I feel old too.
Mike, today we want to remind everybody that we are going to go down to 3 episodes a week starting next week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday will likely be our schedule. We might move that around a little bit, but just so you know, you'll be getting 3 episodes of Locked On Angels per week from here until pitchers and catchers report. So a little bit of a programming note, but I thought it was important for us to have a discussion today about who's clutch on this team and are the best hitters on the team clutch. Do they get a hit when it matters the most? So we're looking at 3 key players today and seeing if they have the clutch factor and if they bring that to the table, and do they deliver at the plate when it matters most with runners on base or when the game is on the line. We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to use Baseball Reference to understand the data, the situations, and let you know how these players came through in clutch situations. Mike, I think it would be more than appropriate to start with Mr. Mike Trout.
The greatest of all time, Mr. Mike Trout, who still has the largest contract in baseball history. That is until whatever happens, right? And so Mike Trout had 499 plate appearances last season, and it was minimized because of a back injury. And then he came back and then just got red hot, hitting home runs in, was it 7 straight games? I think it was 7. And he looked incredible. He had 302 plate appearances, Johnny, last season with, get this, no one on base. Nobody was in front of him. So a lot of solo home runs in that time span. He had 197 at-bats with men on base, 92 of them. Gosh, looking at these numbers is depressing. 92 of them, he had runners in scoring position, which means they were at second and or at third base.
Yes.
And Johnny, if you were to look at Mike Trout's stats with runners in scoring position, here are the numbers. Again, 92 plate appearances, 18 hits, 8 doubles, 5 home runs, 31 runs batted in, 16 walks, and 24 strikeouts. Here's his slash line: 243 batting average, 380 on base percentage, 554 slugging percentage, and a 935 on base plus slugging percentage. Here's what really stands out. He only grounded into 1 double play with runners in scoring position, as opposed to our last greatest of all time on the team. Should I mention him? Albert Pujols, who seemed to really love grounding into the double play when runners were on. And that only happened once, and it was with the bases loaded. So it wasn't great, but Trout is not somebody who grounds into too many double plays. I know that 243 average doesn't look fantastic, but that is in 92 plate appearances. So it is a pretty large sample size, Johnny. Those numbers, I think, give us a good clue as to what Trout can do if you get some runners on base in front of him, which is really what we needed last season.
I really want to zoom in on the stats. So we are going to throw a lot of numbers at you, but we're going to say them slowly and clearly so that you can catch what's coming at you in terms of breaking down Mike Trout's stats with runners in scoring position. And understanding that in situations where you want to keep the line moving, especially like 1 out, 2 out situations, Mike Trout did pretty well. But let me start
Yeah.
with 0 out situations. In 0 out situations with a runner on second, Mike Trout had 10 plate appearances, so he had 10 chances to do something. He had 3 hits, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 2 strikeouts, and a 300 average. So that's not too bad. In 0
Right.
out situations with runners on first and second, 4 plate appearances, 2 Ks, didn't get any hits. So that is an area in which he faltered. He had runners on first and second, but he didn't have very many tries, Mike. That was only 4 plate appearances.
Right.
0 outs, runner on third. He had 1 single plate appearance, 1 strikeout, and so there was nothing in that one singular
That's
situation.
remarkable that he had 1 plate appearance with no outs and a runner at third base. Good grief.
Right. 0 out situations with runners on first and third. He had 2 plate appearances, 1 RBI, 1 strikeout. So the RBI he scored was actually on an out in that situation. 0 outs, runners on second and third. He had 2 tries, 2 plate appearances. He had a strikeout and a walk. In 0 out situations with the bases loaded, 2 plate appearances. Again, 0 outs, bases loaded. Only 2 times that happened all season.
Wow.
He had a ground into a double play, and then he had a walk, which netted an RBI. So 0 outs and runners in scoring position, not his strongest showing. His best 0 out situation was runner on second, where he went 3 for 10 and had 3 RBIs. Gee, I wonder who that runner on second usually was.
Yeah,
maybe a Mr. Shohei Ohtani. Talk about 1 out situations, Mike.
Here's what we're going to find is that the more outs, the better Mike Trout actually got.
Yeah,
the more consistent he was. So in 1 out situations with a runner on base, Trout thrived. And so with a runner on 31 plate appearances, 8 hits, 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, 5 walks, 10 Ks, a 308 average. Now, 1 out with a runner at second, 16 plate appearances, 2 hits, 1 double, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 6 walks, and 4 Ks, a 200 batting average. 3 of those 6 walks were intentional walks, which is why it's so important to have somebody who is really clutch behind Mike Trout, because that's why when you saw his slash line with the 92 plate appearances, his on-base percentage was 380. I mean, he's going to draw a walk or he's going to make some sort of contact. Now, 1 out with a runner at third, just 3 plate appearances, had a hit. It was a double, RBI, a walk, and 1 K, a 500 batting average. With 1 out and runners on first and second, 5 plate appearances, 2 hits, a double, home run, 4 RBIs, hitting over 400. And then 1 out, first and third, 2 plate appearances, 1 strikeout. 1 out, second and third, 1 plate appearance, and he didn't do anything, so he doesn't have an average there. Now, 1 out with the bases loaded, 2 plate appearances, 1 hit, a double, 3 RBIs, batting 1,000, Michael Trout. And so Trout's best 1 out scenarios are when he had a runner on first, had runners on second, runners on third, and first and second, and when the bases were loaded. So he was just really, really clutch when needed to be, when he had 1 out and was facing a need to get those runners in.
Let's look at 2 out situations very quickly. You want to keep the game going, of course, in 2 out situations, and Trout really thrived here. 2 outs, nobody on. He had 68 plate appearances, 18 hits, 1 double, 6 home runs, 6 RBIs, 4 base on balls, and a 281 average. Now, 2 outs with a runner on first, 23 tries, 8 hits, 2 doubles, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 2 walks, 5 Ks, and a 400 average. With 2 outs and a runner on second, he had 12 plate appearances, 1 hit, 1 RBI, 4 walks, and 3 Ks. That was good for a 125 average. 2 outs, a runner on third. This one was really strong. 8 plate appearances, 4 hits, 1 double, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 1 walk, a 571 average.
He's going to knock
2
that
outs
run
with
in.
runners on first and second, 10 plate appearances, 1 hit, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, a walk, 5 Ks, and a 111 average. Listen to this. 2 outs with runners on first and third. He had 7 tries, 3 hits, 1 double, 4 RBIs, 3 Ks, and a 429 average. 2 outs with runners on second and third, 4 plate appearances. He had 1 intentional walk in that situation. And then 2 outs with the bases loaded. He had 1 plate appearance, and it was an RBI on a hit by pitch.
Wow. Well, I think what we're seeing here is that Trout is fantastic with 2 outs. He's really, really good and has a good eye for the strike zone and can really make contact. So, Johnny, real quick, let's talk about high leverage situations. So, this is from
Yes.
Baseball Reference. This is leverage index. Here's what it is. Within a game, there are plays that are more pivotal than others. And we attempt to quantify these plays with a stat called leverage index, or LI. It looks at the possible changes in win probability in any given situations where dramatic swings in win probability are possible. And an example of that would be like a runner on second late in the game when it's tied.
Hmm.
They have a higher LI than situations where there can be no large change in win probability. For example, like late innings, and it's like a 12-run blowout.
We call those garbage time home runs around here.
Yes. Unfortunately, we've seen a couple of those in the time that we've been Angel fans. And so here's Mike Trout's high leverage stats when the game is on the line. These are fantastic, John. 84 plate appearances, 22 hits, 4 doubles, a triple, 9 homers, 30 RBIs, 13 walks, just 21 strikeouts, a 3.24 average. 9 of his home runs were in high leverage situations. 10 of his home runs were in medium leverage situations. He had a 2.53 average in those situations. And 21 of his home runs were in low leverage situations, but that's also where he had the most appearances. He had 245 plate appearances at that point in the season.
I think these stats and the high to medium leverage situations goes to show that we need Mike Trout in more high stakes situations. And the reason why he has 245 plate appearances in low leverage, that's pretty normal considering there's a lot of game left to be played, right? And usually those medium and high leverage situations don't come till the end of the game. However, I'd like to see Mike Trout be in more high leverage situations because it shows that he comes through when there's runners on base, when there's 2 outs, and you got to get that run home and you got to change the outcome of the game. I think Mike Trout can make a real difference, especially when he has runners on in front of him. So even in 1 and 2 out situations, he can make a real difference. He's got to have more plate appearances in these kinds of situations. And the team, the way that we're building the team out, and I know we're not building from the top down, we're kind of building from the middle out, right?
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more of that this season with Mike Trout.
Well, coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to talk about where Mike Trout should bat in the lineup if he needs more of these type of plate appearances. Locked On Angels is brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Administration. This holiday season, as you're hanging out with some friends and having a few drinks, sometimes a few becomes too many. And as the evening comes to an end, you might think about driving yourself home. Maybe your thought is, hey, what's the worst that could happen? The truth is, everyone knows about the risks of driving buzzed and driving drunk, and the results are often tragic and deadly. However, that really doesn't stop most people from getting behind the wheel and driving under the influence. It's why police officers are out there right now and will be during the holiday season looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, please think again. Play it safe, plan ahead, get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's life forever. Remember, drive sober or get pulled over.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. And for your second listen, you got to check out Locked On Sports Today. All the games that matter the most, all the biggest stories in sports, you can get it all in like 22 minutes a day. So it's not going to take up too much of your time. Put it on while you're driving, while you're getting ready for work in the morning. Locked On Sports Today is there for you. They go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with Locked On's local experts. So check out Locked On Sports Today. It's available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.
So do the Angels have clutch hitters? We've already confirmed that Mike Trout is a clutch hitter. Now let's take a look at Tony Two Hips, Anthony Rendon. We want Mr. Healthy to be healthy this season. And so we're not going to get as specific with Mike Trout. We want to zoom out just a little bit, but what we're going to find is Rendon actually does come up strong when necessary. So, Johnny, why don't you start with his totals from 2022?
Yeah, we didn't get to see a lot of Rendon in 2022. He had 193 plate appearances, 38 hits, 5 home runs, 24 RBIs, and this is his stat line: 229 average, 326 on base, 380 slugging, and a 706 on base plus slugging. Not great, Mike. That's not what you want to see out of your star third baseman that you signed for 7 years.
Right.
But if we look at where he thrived versus where he didn't do so well, I think the numbers are really telling. Listen to this. He
Okay.
had 103 plate appearances with nobody on base, and that was good for 15 hits, 8 doubles, 1 home run, 1 RBI, 11 walks, 19 strikeouts, and a 165 average.
So you don't want
Yikes.
him leading off an inning.
You do
It's
not
essentially
want
what
him
I'm reading
leading
into
off
that.
an inning, and that actually kind of changes my perspective, because I figured with him being so good at drawing walks and getting on base
Yeah.
that he's got 11 walks, but that's in 103 plate appearances.
Right.
I feel like he needs to be behind somebody who's going to get
Sure.
on base. So that's a big yikes right there. But listen to this. This brings me hope. This makes me more hopeful for Anthony Rendon. 90 plate appearances with runners on base. 23 hits, 2 doubles, 4 home runs, 23 RBIs, 12 walks, 16 strikeouts, 307 batting average.
Wow.
That is a massive improvement. Now,
Yeah.
52 of those 90 plate appearances with runners on base, 52 of them had runners in scoring position. Again, that's runners on second and third, runners on third, or just second, that sort of thing. 52 plate appearances, 11 hits, 1 double, 1 home run, 16 RBIs, 9 walks, 7 Ks. Listen to this slash line with
This is
runners in
good.
scoring position. 275 average, 404 on base percentage, a 375 slugging, and a 779 OPS. He only grounded into 2 double plays with runners in scoring position. So I think these stats are pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the things we can learn from that, Mike.
Well, when he's healthy and he's got 2 good hips and a really strong wrist, Rendon is great with runners on base. Johnny, I would even argue that we probably wouldn't have lost all those games in a row if he was still playing with us, right? If he was in that lineup, because he has proven to be clutch in years past. And even though his stats in 2022 were not fantastic, those deep dive stats tell us that he actually really was clutch. And what was dragging his stats down, John, was when he had nobody on base, when he was leading off an inning. 4 of the 5 home runs he had in his short time this season, he had runners on. And so he was swinging and he was reading the pitch and he knew the strike zone really, really well. And most of his plate appearances came in low leverage situations, 88 of them. But in medium leverage situations, he had 71 plate appearances. John, listen to these numbers: 19 hits, 4 doubles, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 10 walks, 9 Ks, a 317 batting average, a 409 on base percentage. That is what we need. 533 slugging. And then listen to this: 942 OPS. Johnny, this guy, he can hit. And this is why we get really excited if he's healthy, if he's in that lineup and he's playing 140, 150 games. Man, it is going to change the dynamic of this lineup 150,000%.
I know we had a very short window of Anthony Rendon this season, but to me, I went back and looked at his stats from 2021 thinking, I wonder if he did kind of the same thing. No, he was bad in 2021 and he played more games.
Okay.
But the thing is, Mike, it was all because of the hips. And if you don't have your hips below you, you're not going to be able to hit well. And so for me to look at his stats from 2022 when his hips were better, I know the wrist issue came up and that caused him to miss the rest of the season. But if he's got healthy hips and he's healthy and he's on the field and he's coming through in these clutch situations, we really need him and Mike Trout to be on the field. They're essential to us winning this season. And I almost think that if you put Mike Trout at second or third, if you have him batting second or third and then Rendon is behind him and maybe Shohei's in front of Rendon, I realize now why Rendon has been batting cleanup in the time that he's been on the team, because he really thrives in those situations with men on base and even more with runners in scoring position. So he's an essential piece of this team this season. How do you feel about Rendon, where he slots, where Trout might slot in the lineup? What do you think?
I think that you have to have Rendon at 4, maybe 5, and I think you should have Mike Trout at 3. And Trout has proven to be somebody that's going to knock in runs, and then having Rendon behind him. We're still going to talk about Shohei, so that might change my mind. But quite honestly, after looking at those stats, I think that you have to set your lineup maybe like we used to set the lineup, John, back in the teen years when Mike was a teen in the 90s, right? Like we used to have those big hitters at 3, 4, and 5 instead of having them bat first and second, because the statistics say that you want them to have more at bats. Perhaps for the Angels, we need to throw it back because we've got a throwback manager like Phil Nevin, and we need to have Mike Trout batting 3 and having Anthony Rendon batting maybe 5, and then having Shohei bat 4. And then we can have a really great lineup in the middle of the lineup, knocking in runs, but also they've proven to get on base when they need to get on base as well.
Let's not throw it back too far, though. Let's not go back to 1985. I'm over that. Let's not do that.
Well, today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from basketball to football to soccer to esports. They've got you covered at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, we've got one last segment, and of course, we have to talk about Shohei Ohtani, because if a week goes by where we don't talk about him, then hell will freeze over, I guess. I don't know.
The Mets think they're going to get him, or the Dodgers think they're going to get him. So we have to talk about him.
We got to talk about Shohei. Let me give you his totals from 2022. He had 666 plate appearances. Oh, so hell will freeze over. Okay. 160 hits, 30 doubles, 6 triples, 34 home runs, 95 RBIs, 72 walks, 161 Ks. That was good for a slash line of 273 average, 356 on base, 519 slugging, and an 875 OPS. Listen to this. Of those 666 plate appearances, 268 had runners on base.
Wow.
398 did not. Ouch. Hey, 130 of those 268 plate appearances had runners in scoring position. And this is what Ohtani had in that situation. 32 hits, 7 doubles, 2 triples, 12 RBIs. 12 home runs, 64 RBIs.
Wow.
23 walks, 14 of those were intentional, 22 strikeouts, a 314 average, of 439 on base percentage, a 775 slugging. Listen to this, a 1.213 OPS. That is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an OPS that you should pay for, Angels. That 1.213 OPS with runners in scoring position. Here's what it means. It means that Ohtani was having his most productive at bats when he had runners on, whether it was a walk or a hit. He was really paying attention, and he is really clutch. I know it felt like at some points during the season that maybe Ohtani wasn't, but as you see with the numbers, when runners were on, he was fantastic. 277 with men on base, 314 with runners in scoring position, and then 271. So it wasn't that much of a difference with nobody on. But I think sometimes when we're watching the game and we need Shohei to do everything for us, when he grounds out or strikes out or pops out, we're like, come on, Shohei. We need you to do something here. But his best averages came when he had runners on base. And here's why. Because pitchers don't want to make a mistake to Shohei Ohtani when they have runners on base. They want to try to get ahead of the batter and make sure that they are not falling behind. And this is why it's so important for Shohei to have runners on in front of him. John, could you run through just a couple of situations with 1 out and with 2 out and give us some numbers from Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah, just to dive in a little bit. In 1 out situations with nobody on, Shohei hit 283. That was 122 plate appearances. 1 out, a runner on first. He hit 340 in 63 plate appearances. 1 out, runner on second. He had 22 plate appearances. He hit 313. 1 out, runners on first and second. He hit 333 in 12 plate appearances. 1 out, runners on second and third. He also hit 333 in just 7 plate appearances. Now, with 2 outs and a runner on second, he had 17 tries, 3 hits, 1 double, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 5 walks, and 3 Ks for a 273 average. 2 outs, and the bases loaded, when you really want to see somebody drive somebody home, he came through with 2 hits, 1 double, 4 RBIs in just 3 tries. So he came through each time. He had 2 singles and a double. He got 4 RBIs. So every time he came up with 2 outs and the bases loaded, Shohei Ohtani came through. Mike, there's a couple of instances where he didn't succeed, but those chances were kind of few and far between. But why don't you hit us with some of those numbers?
So 2 outs with runners at first and third. He hit just 250, but that was only a few plate appearances. He got 4 RBIs, and the time that he didn't get a hit, he knocked in a run, but he did get a single and a double in that. 2 outs with a runner at third. He had 8 plate appearances, 3 walks, and a K. And truth is, John, he didn't have the home run totals that he had the year before when he won the MVP, but he was more of a consistent hitter in 2022. In fact, and the numbers prove this with Trout and with Ohtani, if they had more runners on, I think both of those guys could have hit the century mark when it came to RBIs. I mean, Ohtani wasn't that far away from that. These numbers just prove that he was really good with those runners on. So if he had more on, Ohtani would be even better, Johnny. Even
Who are you
better.
calling a moron?
That was a nice dad joke, and you're not a dad. Hey-o. I like that. So, I mean, all of this just goes to show that Trout, Rendon, and Ohtani are super strong when it comes to runners on base. They are clutch. They will come through. And after reading these numbers, Johnny, I think that I'm looking at a lineup where I would put Trout at 3, Ohtani at 4, and Rendon at 5. I get that there are those analytics that say you want to get them the most at bats. But quite frankly, it might be wise to have a couple of guys hitting in front of them and then having a couple of guys hitting behind them, protecting Ohtani and Trout. Maybe it's Taylor Ward and then perhaps David Fletcher, or maybe it's Taylor Ward and then you have, I don't know, Hunter Renfroe in there or something like that, right? Like somebody that can really hit well, but also get on base. I think you need somebody that's going to be in a position so that Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Anthony Rendon can hit them in, because as the numbers prove, they will come through when needed.
Yeah, I understand the urgency to put them at the top and get them the most plate appearances in a game, but do you want quantity or do you want quality? And if the Angels have runners on in front of those 3, it just goes to show you're going to get quality instead of quantity. You're going to get productive at bats that drive in runs, that score runners, that put you ahead when it's a tie game. When the game's on the line, Trout comes through, Rendon comes through, Shohei comes through. So it demonstrates that these guys need to have quality at bats, even though it might get them 1 less in a game. I mean, gosh, if they're hitting, that certainly is going to come back around to them again in the batting order. And that's momentum. That momentum carries, and it might carry 1 through 9. If those guys are driving in runs and sets the rest of the lineup on fire, they might get another plate appearance in that same inning. It's not out of the question. But I really just think that diving into these numbers just goes to show that these guys need runners on in front of them, and they have to figure out how to do that this season.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. They share some of the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. They're available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure to give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. We love catching up with you there. Comment below on YouTube if you are surprised by these numbers, if anything stood out to you. Mike, what do we have on deck for Friday's show?
Well, we're asking this question: who's left in the free agent market? We're going to talk about those remaining free agents, because it seems like everybody's signing. Noah Syndergaard and Michael Lorenzen. We're going to talk about them. Everybody's finding a team. So is there anybody left for the Halos? Anybody fit on the Halos? We're going to talk all about that tomorrow on Locked On Angels. Are you looking for somebody right now?
Anybody left? Hello? You guys want to come to the Angels? All right, we're looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
I wonder what Nolan Ryan's doing. Maybe he can come back and pitch for us. And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
We hope you'll join us again, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for more Locked On Angels.